A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase, Episode 1, Getting Started. The contemporary musician has many choices in digital audio workstations. Until last year, we made music the old school way by recording basic tracks with this Tascam 8-track and mixing them in Logic Express. While we had good results using this system, I wanted the freedom of unlimited tracks and the ability to create soundscapes. My only complaint with Cubase was how complicated it had become over the last 20 years. The good news is that it's a lot friendlier than I thought it was. We learned so much making in the flow that I want to pass this knowledge on to others, to demystify the process so you too can have an experience of success in expressing yourself creatively. In my opinion, Cubase offers you the best of all worlds. So let's begin at the beginning. You'll want to set up your studio to be a space that you'll enjoy spending time in, because you'll be spending a lot of time there. You'll want a nice ergonomic workstation, at least one large monitor, a computer with a good sound card, a USB hub to plug in all the peripherals you're going to need, monitors to listen to your progress. More than one set of monitors is preferable. You don't need to spend a fortune. Having different monitors to listen to your work will come in really handy at the mixing stage. There's more than one version of Cubase, and naturally the more you're willing to spend, the more bells and whistles you'll get. I have Cubase Elements 12 and was able to do everything I wanted to do. You can get Cubase Elements 13 for about $100. Obviously, you will need to purchase the software and install it. I won't be covering any of that here. You will need an audio interface or breakout box. We use a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. Ours came bundled in a package with a condenser mic and a mic stand. You will also need a MIDI controller. Install your drivers to make sure that Cubase talks to your devices. Make sure your MIDI controller shows up in your MIDI remote manager. Make sure your audio interface populates in your studio setup and control panel with no discrepancies. In our case, we have our audio going through the Scarlett headphone jack into our PA instead of through the monitor. So decide where you want to route your audio and check all the boxes accordingly. The Scarlett condenser mic uses phantom power and won't work at all without the 48 volts switched on. So if yours is the same way, make sure all of that's handled before you try using it. Now you're ready to create your new project. On this screen, you can see all your projects. If you don't see it here, you can scroll down the list until you find it. You can choose different sorts of projects. But here we're going to create an empty project. This will ask you where you want to store your files. Remember that you'll always be able to access them from the project page. This takes you to your new project window. From the drop-down menu, choose Project. Then select either Audio Track, if you're using your audio interface, or Instrument Track, to use the Halion synthesizer that comes with Cubase. There are other options too, but I won't be addressing those here. We will be choosing an audio track because we'll be recording with a microphone. Specify if you want it to be mono or stereo. Type in what it is you're recording. That's a good habit to get into. The inspector is blank when you open the page, which is disconcerting, but slide up and you can see the control panel. Verify whether your recording bus is correct. Set up your tempo and time signature by opening the transport panel. It's set at 120 beats per minute and 4/4 time. You can access the metronome here or at the bottom right. This is how to open the metronome settings and the click sounds. The Scarlett has a Focusrite control program that starts up automatically, and it mirrors your settings on the box. To record with your mic, have it set to air. Record enable your channel and get your recording levels. You can see them when the monitor button is highlighted. Now you're ready to track. Wear your headphones, but take care that your microphone isn't so sensitive and headphones aren't too loud so that the metronome bleeds over onto your track. For recording guitars or anything else not off the air with a microphone, set the audio interface to Instrument. We added wind chimes and a crash, and after mixing, this was our finished product. See you in episode 2, where we will cover thinking like a player. Thanks for watching. Welcome to episode 2 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. Audio tracks, like guitars, render as waveforms on the grid. And these are instruments you probably already know. But Cubase has an incredible array of sounds in the Halion synthesizer. You could really go to town with your own orchestra or instruments from all over the world and beyond. And today we're going to dive a little deeper into what it's really all about, the creative process, and expressing yourself creatively. Because when it comes to art, you are limited only by your imagination. And Cubase has tools to empower you to achieve things you'd never thought possible. Obviously, it's all in how you use it. And this applies to all the other digital audio workstations too. For me, it's been an amazing learning tool. By the way it's visually laid out on a grid, you will learn how music works, and why it works, and what you need to do in order to make it work the way you want to hear it. Everything is laid out on the grid according to time signature, and subdivided: whole notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, 16th notes, 32nd notes, 64th notes, and 128th notes. So you can play anything and then see how it renders on the grid, and then tweak it to make it come out just the way you want it. If you played it sloppy, you can quantize the part, or you can record with auto-quantize. If eighth notes don't sound right, try quantizing in 16. Play around with it. Experiment. When you choose a MIDI instrument that you've never played before in real life, the challenge is to think like a player. That is, if you want it to come off like the real thing. You might be doing some kind of avant-garde, underground thing, and that's cool too. And the same advice still applies. Don't let yourself get frustrated. Think outside the box, because there will always be a workaround for any musical problem. For the Soulful Heart, which is a jazzy piece, I wanted a vibraphone solo. But I'm not a vibraphone player. But I have an idea of what they're supposed to sound like. So what I did was loop the section and played 3 different parts that comped together sound legit. I'm a bass player, but I had to do and completely redo the bass part 4 times to get what I was looking for. Something that would really bring out the full potential of the piece. If you're a perfectionist or a control freak, with Cubase you can finally get the satisfaction you've been looking for. Cubase sounds amazing, full, resonant, and powerful. You can relax and enjoy the process and let the music be your guide. In our next episode, we'll explore drawing inspiration from life. Thanks for watching. Welcome to episode 3 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. In this video, we will be discussing drawing inspiration from life and how to use it. The first thing to remember is that art is subjective, and anything you do art-wise is okay. All that really matters is that you like it and that you're happy with your progress. The minute you concern yourself with the opinions of others, art ceases being art and turns into product. No longer expressing yourself, you've become a human jukebox or a dancing puppet for the fleeting amusement of others, which is okay too, if that's what you want to do with your life. But either way, you need to start somewhere with something to write about. We moved to Arizona from Los Angeles to a semi-rural area near the Colorado River. Unlike the metropolis we were accustomed to, here we have wide open spaces and plenty of charming wildlife. The familiar coyotes, but also quail, roadrunners who are half tame, rabbits, kit fox, owls, and even wild burros. We were surrounded by characters out of Aesop's fables, and I wondered what it signified on a sacred and spiritual level to share the land and coexist alongside all of these different beings, and how much their presence added to our lives. I thought about doing some research on spirit animals and writing an article or making a video, but I never got around to it. But with the music that became Desert Sunrise, it all came spilling out. The urban pad represents the new day dawning. The handpan is the sun. The drums an homage to the desert Southwest. The flute symbolic of all the various bird species calling out to one another and greeting the day. For percussion, I plugged in with the Elisa strike pad, but I also built my own drum tracks using Multisonic from the Halion synthesizer. Cubase comes with Groove Agent, but we already have 3 drum kits, so I haven't needed to learn how it works. I did, however, enjoy building my own drum tracks in Multisonic, and we will get into more detail on this in the next episode when we talk about layering tracks. Listen to your work in progress and get a feel for what it needs. You'll find that the song will tell you what it wants to do. When you put your heart and soul into your creation, drawing inspiration from life, your art takes on a life of its own. Thanks for watching. episode 4 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. In this episode, we will take a look at layering tracks. With this album, most of the tracks started off with just the handpan and the click track, and we built the songs from that base on out. And it was easy to do, because Halion has all kinds of interesting sounds. If you're not sure which way to go, scroll through the sounds and audition them one by one, and before you know it, you'll have exactly what you need. Here we've shuffled the layers around for variety. Some of the sounds have a lot of regeneration, so you'll need to edit them if you want them to end at the same time as everything else. You'll need to play around with it. Other versions of Cubase might have this as a specific MIDI editing function, but it can be done. There's a workaround for everything. Movement is Life is the typical 120 beats per minute, so I decided to make it into a dance track. I used Multisonic to build my own drum track. Again, this is done by layering, sound on sound. You might not be a drummer, but you have an idea of what drums are supposed to sound like. So find the hi-hat sound you like. Record with auto quantize, so whatever you end up hammering out will automatically conform to the tempo. Now, think about your snare drum. What should it sound like? And where should it land? You're building a groove. Find a snare sound that you like, and repeat the process as before. Do the same for your kick drum. Multisonic has all kinds of useful drum and percussion sounds that lend themselves to jazzy things, so play around with it. Do you want a shaker or a tambourine? Build the most slammin' percussion track you can, because you can. Doing this will teach you how rhythm works, or doesn't work, with instant, immediate feedback. So, after putting all the layers together, this was our finished product. In our next episode, we will explore velocities and how to use them. Thanks for watching. Welcome to episode 5 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. In this lesson, we will be working with velocities. Velocities are the measure of how hard you strike your MIDI controller. Velocity matters as it affects the sound, accent, and attack, and indeed the overall expression of your instrument. It takes some getting used to, and to be honest, getting the velocities right has been the most challenging aspect of working with a program like Cubase. My workaround has been to analyze what I played and isolate the section where the velocities came out best, and copy and paste it throughout. We will go over copying and pasting in our next episode. Another way is to manually change the velocities, which goes wonky unless you do them one at a time, which can be tedious. Other versions of Cubase might have this as an actual editing function, but when there's a will, there's a way. With the music that became Healing Journey, I manipulated the velocities in order to get the echo effect I was looking for. Using Cubase as a compositional partner, you can loop a section and try different things until you figure out what works. To loop a section, type in the first bar and the last bar on the lower left. Type / or hit the looper button to turn the looper on. Hit the record button or press *. For punching in and out, hit these icons. To stop, hit the stop button or press the space bar. The transport bar on the right always tells you where you are. Cubase takes you on a creative journey with infinite opportunities to jam with yourself and explore. In our next episode, we will cover creating slow and ambient compositions. But until then, here's how Healing Journey turned out. Thanks for watching. Welcome to episode 6 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. In this lesson, I will explain how I approached Eastern Skies, a slow and ambient piece. It started with the handpan on the 1. That was the easy part. At only 30 beats per minute, the metronome was so slow that I had to construct a temporary rhythm track for support so I could hear where to put the strings. The music was shaping up to be a kind of an Asian piece. I remembered an old cassette tape I used to have of Chinese Year of the Tiger music, so that's what I was aiming for. I wanted something that would sound like a gong, and Brent's Pang cymbal worked perfectly. Halion offers wonderful instrument sounds from all over the world, so I found the perfect Asian sounds. For the solo, once again, I had to think like a flute player. The melody, the phrasing, and the velocities all needed to come together to make it come off right. Some things will come naturally to you, and others won't, until you figure out the theory behind them. Just loop the section and jam on it, and sooner or later you'll get it. The trick is to not get frustrated and give up. Pace yourself. Your ears are going to get tired, so when you start feeling the burnout, take a break. Call it a night. Tomorrow your ears will be fresh, and the ideas will be there waiting for you. On Eastern Skies, we needed to fine-tune the arrangement. We needed to move things around. So, to do this, double-click on your instrument track. Make a note of where the section falls according to the grid, because this will be a predictable pattern. For example, if the first note begins on the second bar of the measure, then that's where it goes wherever you copy it to. Make a note of where you need to paste your audio. Clear it out if something is already there. Rewind to the notes you want to copy. Rewind is the minus sign. Highlight it. Then Control-C. Then fast forward to your target location. Fast forward is the plus sign. Then hit Control-V. There might be a more elegant way to do this somewhere in the documentation, but this is a beginner's course, by a beginner, for beginners. And sometimes doing it your own way is just easier. Our next lesson will touch on the importance of keeping an open mind. And now, with the arrangement finalized, we present to you Eastern Skies. Thanks for watching. Welcome to Episode 7 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. In this episode, we will touch on the importance of keeping an open mind. We constructed the piece that became Great Awakening in a similar way to Movement is Life, by layering sounds, only this time without percussion. I needed something that would provide a melodic lead line, something with both a high and a low, and sure enough, I found it. Sometimes that one sound you literally stumble upon will be exactly what you need to make the piece complete. So keep an open mind, because once you have a basic grasp of how Cubase works and get down to the business of making music, the process is surprisingly intuitive and filled with serendipities that take you places you'd never even envisioned. And that's a good thing. Unlike the other songs on the album that started off with the handpan, By Your Side was composed on acoustic guitar. We tracked 2 rhythm guitars, one with a Nashville tuning for a 12-string ambiance. My original plan was to have a mandolin lead, but when that didn't pan out, I found a synth that sounded cool and came up with a melody. I wanted to play a contrapuntal melodic line on my Strat, but the lick that was otherwise perfect didn't sound right next to the cool synth. So I replaced it with a cool synth, and it worked. I found another synth with a cool 80s vibe for a nice build, and voila! Something way better than my original vision. Our next lesson will be an overview of mixing in Cubase. Thanks for watching. to episode 8 of A Beginner's Guide to Recording in Cubase. In this final episode of the series, we will look at the mixing tools in Cubase and where to find them. I must admit that I was nervous about mixing in Cubase because the tutorials we'd seen all seemed to assume that we already knew what we were doing. But once again, Cubase turned out to be a whole lot friendlier than I thought it would be. For me, the first and most important element is having the right compression for each track. Click on the E to edit your channel settings. Go to your channel strip and click on Standard Compressor. And here, kind of hidden, Cubase has all kinds of compression settings. Check these out because they're all different in subtle yet major ways. And you're bound to find one that will get your track where it needs to be. I didn't use the EQ much because it seemed to make things worse rather than help, but that was probably me. Using the right compression seemed to solve most of my issues. Next to the channel strip, you'll find the inserts. Here you will find your effects. I used tremolo on the Nashville guitar on By Your Side. And here you'll find the pitch correct. It's not auto-tune, but it worked in the spots where the handpan got all wonky. I started mixing some of our other songs, and it works for vocals too. And here, under Dynamics, you'll find other compressions and EQs you could potentially use if you didn't want to use the presets. But we were happy with the easy-peasy presets. Over here, we have the maximizer and limiter. And here, that takes you to a ton of other effects. For guitars and vocals, everything you'll need is right here. It's comprehensive and amazing. But aside from your tools and your effects, the most important component in the mixing process is you and your ears. You are going to be doing a lot of listening, and listening with discernment and focus, analyzing the balance of the drums and the bass, and then introducing other instruments over and over and over while you twiddle the knobs. And with practice, you'll get better at listening and more intuitive at knowing which knob to twiddle and how much. It helps to have a partner who has good ears. Like Brent, he's really helped me learn how to get a good mix. And unlike me, who will stubbornly and compulsively keep going, he knows when we need to take a break. Check your mix from time to time by listening to it through different sets of monitors. Make sure the bass isn't too bombastic or too low. Make sure your vocal or your lead instrument sits in the right place in the mix. You can be confident that you have a good mix when it sounds equally valid through your headphones and 2 other different types of speaker systems. A good mix is like a sonic sculpture. For me, it's like the space between my ears is a stage, and all the elements take their proper places on that stage. The arrangement comes to life and dances and sparkles. That's what we're aiming for with our mixes. Once you're happy with your mix, go to File on the drop-down menu. Go to Export. Then click on Audio Mixdown. Rename the file if appropriate, and in Path, click where you want to send the file. It'll default to the Mixdown folder, or you can send it to a memory stick. I like to send everything to my G drive, which is an external SD card drive. Then hit Export, and you're all set. Cubase has a mastering program, but I haven't used it yet. Judging by everything else, it's probably pretty good. I will try it out for our next release and report on my findings then. So I hope that this series has been an inspiration for you and hopefully demystified the process. Cubase is a big program with a lot of moving parts, And I've only begun to scratch the surface of all the things it can do. But with that being said, Cubase is so good that you can hang out in the shallow waters and still come up with something cool and have a blast while doing it. Thanks for watching.